Everybody, hello and welcome to the Spurs 9501 live stream. I've got Harshal Patel, who's a football analyst with us. Hello, Harshal. Welcome back. Hope you can
Thank
hear
you
me
for
okay.
having me, Ray. Yes,
So,
I can.
guys,
Thank you for having me again, Ray.
No, you're most welcome. So what we're doing here, guys, is we're going to do a live stream. For the first part of the live stream, we're going to get Harshal, who's going to talk about some of the new signings Tottenham have made. And in the second part, we're going to have some experts from football Argentina who are going to help us understand QT Romero, Martinez, and all these other guys, how they're good they are and what they're doing, etc. So if you've got any questions or you want any answers or anything, please, put them in the comment section. Ask the questions in the live chat, and we'll get them answered. So, so let's start off the discussion. So, Harshal, we've got a lot of our subscribers have come back to us and said, they don't understand what a lot of these terms mean and things like that. So maybe you can help me out. I'll give you some terms, and you can try and help me out. So the first one they've asked about is double pivot. So what does double pivot mean? So often talked about Højbjerg and Skip in a double pivot. What does that mean?
So that's what that basically a double pivot is a two-man midfield. So if you look at football formations where, say, for example, if it's a 4-2-3-1, the two in that 4-2-3-1 would be that double pivot. If it's even something like a 3-4-3 or a 3-5-2, like for example, look at the system that Chelsea play, where it's a back three with wing backs. It's a 3-4-3 essentially, but that they've got a double pivot in midfield. There's a two-man midfield, and you can almost say that every two-man midfield or every system that has a two-man midfield is a double pivot, or more or less. But what it essentially means is that the two players would sort of take turns going forward and staying back. So it's like a pivot in the sense that it needs to go this way. If one guy goes forward, the other sits back. That's essentially what you look at in a double pivot. So even if you look at Spurs and say, if they're going to play a 4-2-3-1, and as you said, if for example it's a midfield duo of Oliver Skip and Pierre-Emile Højbjerg, you'd have to have that balance of where if one player is going forward to support the attack, the other sits back, and that's basically what the double pivot gives you. Or that's basically what the double pivot means, where you need to have that balance between attacking and defending.
Sure. No, okay, that's great. And another one is Mourinho. When we spoke about Mourinho, he's always talking about the low block. So what does the low block mean? Explain that to our subscribers and viewers.
So in terms of your shape or your team shape of the ball when you don't have possession and when you're defending, it can either be a low block, a high block, or a medium block, and it's that essentially means the height of the defensive line, in the sense that how high up are you defending, in terms of how far from a penalty area or how close to your penalty area are you guys defending. So in a low block, for example, a team that's playing a low block would usually have their defensive line, which again, if it's a 4-defender formation, basically your two center backs and the two full backs would not be further than 10 to at the most 15 yards away from your penalty area. A medium block, a mid block would be somewhere along halfway in your own half. So the defensive line would be basically midway through the distance between the half line and your goal line. And if you're playing a high block or a high defensive line, your defensive line is essentially almost on the half line, or in some cases even in the opposition's half, depending on where the ball is. So it essentially, a low block is basically a team or a system where you're defending deep, and that ties in with the rest of this team as well, because you can't have the defensive line say on the edge of a penalty area, but then the midfield and the attack are on the halfway line, because then that leaves a huge amount of space. So you'll normally see the team sort of compressing and sitting really deep, distance between the lines being very minimal, and that's as you said, that's something that Mourinho was famous for earlier on in his career. I don't think he's as good at it now. But that's basically what a low block is, where you're defending deep and very close to your penalty area.
Good evening, Wayne. Good evening, Kev Alexander. Thanks for joining the stream. If you've got any questions, guys, please, feel free to put them in. We've got Harsh here helping. We're going to have the Argentinian guys later coming on and talking about Romero and the other guys. So please do let us know if you've got any questions. So another one we've got here is, what is possession-based football, Harshal? A question for you.
again, very simple.
that
Just a team that would look to dominate possession,
yeah,
where you're trying, or your main focus is to have the ball as
yeah,
much as possible, and then try and create chances. Again, that's at odds with, say, Mourinho's approach. Mourinho has, it's almost famous in terms of where there have been instances where he said this, that he doesn't want his team to have the ball, because in his mindset or his philosophy is that if you have the ball, the chances of you making a mistake and therefore sort of conceding a goal are greater. If you don't have the ball, the lesser the chance of you making a mistake on the ball. So, but when it comes to possession based, what you're basically saying, or what you're basically looking at, is teams or managers or systems where your main focus is to try and dominate possession, is to try and have more of the ball. And when I say more of the ball, I'm not saying something like 52%, 53%. You try and you'd see possession-based teams having sort of possession figures of upwards of 60% consistently, match on match. So, and that's basically the building block of your playing philosophy, and you try and then put everything else, your tactics, your specific sort of rotations, and everything else that you do on the pitch is based on that basic philosophy of whether you want the ball or you don't want the ball.
sure. Okay, that's great. I mean, if you've got any more, if anybody else comes on and asks any questions, we'll answer that. But let's talk about the new signings that we made now. Let's start with QT Romero. Apparently, he was a top defender in Serie A last year. So, what does that actually mean when they say he's a top defender? Is that in terms of tackles or the blocks, or what does that mean, Harshal?
So now, with regard to Romero, he's obviously he's been one of the brightest young defenders in Europe over the last couple of seasons or so. Was at Juventus, was loaned out to Genoa first, then was on loan at Atalanta, and then Atalanta exercised their option to buy him, and they've obviously subsequently loaned him out to Spurs, and with an option to pick him up on a permanent transfer as well. Um, the thing is, there are obviously different types of defenders. Now, there are some defenders who are extremely aggressive, who like to get as many tackles, as many interceptions. I'd call them front foot defenders, in the sense that they're very proactive. They try and sort of have as many involvements in the game as possible. There are others who prefer to sit back, who prefer to let their positioning take care of the job, and may not be as active. And again, this is not just something that is only dependent on the player and his attributes. It ties into the system as well, because if you're a team, for example, going back to what we spoke about just a few minutes earlier, if you're a team that plays in a low block, but you have a defender who's very proactive and looks to get out and tackle and sort of get to the player in possession, that's not going to work, because because if he does that a lot, I mean, you need to understand that if the frequency of those actions is very high, there's a very big chance that you're leaving space in behind for the opposition to attack, which is exactly what you're trying to prevent when you're playing in a low block.
Yep,
So,
yep.
with regard to Atalanta under Gianpiero Gasperini, they've been one of the most aggressive sides, both on and off the ball, across Europe over the last 2 or 3 seasons. And personally, they're one of my favorite sides, honestly, across the top five European leagues to watch, because it's just it's mad. Honestly, it's probably a level above what Leeds do, for example. In terms of positional rotations, in terms of aggression, and Romero has been absolutely at the forefront of that in terms of their defensive work. I mean, if you look at some of the numbers he's put up, one of the things that baffles me is that so there's there if our viewers and subscribers may not know, there's a website called FBREF, which is powered by StatsBomb, which
Yep.
basically has a load of statistics
What's that
across
called again? I'll put that in the chat.
FBREF.com.
FBREF.com.
.com.
Okay,
They're
okay.
basically powered by StatsBomb, and
Yep.
they have a lot of data and numbers on players and teams from across the top five European leagues.
Yep.
So according to now FBREF, one of the statistics they use is pressures, where it's essentially the number of times a player applies pressure to an opposing player who is has the ball or is receiving the ball or is
Right.
carrying the ball.
Yep.
And they break this up in terms of where those pressures occur, whether it's in your own defensive third, whether it's in the
Yep.
middle third of the pitch,
Yep.
or whether it's in the attacking third. Now,
Mhm.
for a centre back, you normally think that the majority of his pressures would take place in his defensive third.
Yep. Yep. You should do. Yeah. Really. That's
Romero,
where he's based.
yeah,
Yeah.
Romero, over the last year or so, Romero made more pressures in the middle third of the pitch than he did in the defensive third of the pitch. It's not too much of a difference. It's a
Yeah.
little bit, but he still made more pressures in the middle third than in the defensive third. Now, again, this ties back to the fact that Atalanta are a team who play very aggressively, but Romero is also a very aggressive defender. He was also extremely aggressive when he was playing for Argentina in the Copa America a month or so ago.
So Harshal, what does that
So
mean then? So if you're saying he's playing a lot of pressure in the middle third of the field, does that mean that in Atlanta there were people coming back covering for him in the centre back position,
no,
so he could push up?
Atalanta actually played a high line. They played with a
Okay.
high defensive line, so their starting position is already higher up the pitch.
Okay. Yep.
And from there, he's moving further up and
Yep.
sort of making more actions, even somewhere on the halfway line or
In the midfield. Yeah.
yeah. So now, and you also another thing that I want to point out is that with Atalanta, he's primarily played in a back three, either usually as the center of the three defenders, or sometimes on the right. And again, the fact that you're playing in a back three gives you a little bit more protection when you're stepping out to sort of engage players, because you've got two defenders, potentially even a wing back covering. I'd say it's a lot more risky to do that when you're playing in a back four, because obviously there's a lot less cover. So you need to. It works if you're playing in a high line, if you're playing in a team that presses high up the pitch. So you've got all of those things working together. But now, with regard to Spurs, it'll come down to what sort of system and what sort of overall approach Nuno chooses to go with. From if you look at preseason, it looks like he's going to play a 4-3-3 or maybe a 4-2-3-1, maybe even a 4-4-2 at times. But I haven't seen too much evidence of Nuno playing with a back three. Whereas at Wolves, Nuno almost exclusively played with a back three until his last season, where he moved to a back four midway through the season. So if Nuno's going to play with a back four and if Romero is going to be one of the starting centre backs, I think there will be a little bit of adjustment both to the league and to Nuno's style of play that Romero will need to have, because I'm not sure that Nuno wants to play a very aggressive, very high pressing style. If that is the case, that's great. But if not, there's a little bit of adjustment that could happen, and that's why Spurs fans will need to be patient.
So Wayne's got a question here. So do you think Romero will fit into Nuno's setup? So what you're saying is, if he plays the back four, they could need some adjustment. If it's a back three, it should be quite seamless because he's used to playing that back three way.
Yes, and also it'll depend on whether Spurs press high, whether they're playing in a mid block or even a high block rather than a low block. Because honestly, if it's a low block, Romero, he's one of the most aggressive defenders in Europe. I mean, he's, again, if you look at FBREF, he's in the 97th, 98th, 99th percentile for stuff like tackles, interceptions, pressures. And again, if somebody's not familiar with the concept of percentiles, what I'm basically saying is that he's in the top 1 to 2% of centre backs across Europe for these actions over the last year. So that's a good thing in the sense that it can help if Spurs play in a similar style. But if Spurs are playing a more defensive style, it could be a little bit of a mismatch in terms of how aggressive Romero is and how aggressively Spurs play. So I genuinely think that there will be a little bit of an adaptation period. Could be as long as the whole season, to be honest, but there will be an adaptation period that Romero will have to go through before I think you can sort of appreciate all his gifts.
So, question from Steve, who's one of our group. Aggressive on the front foot worries me a little bit. It sort of describes Aurier, which means mistakes, penalties, and losing the ball. So, are we saying that there's more likelihood that potentially because of his aggression, he's going to be giving away penalties, he's going to be giving away stuff, at the ball? Do you think that's a possibility in the beginning while he beds in?
Could be. I mean, another thing to note is that I think he averaged a yellow card every 2 games last year.
Oh, wow,
So
okay.
yeah, he is extremely aggressive. When I say aggressive, I mean he genuinely loves to get stuck in, to use a classic term that a lot of football fans use. He genuinely loves to get stuck in. So there is a bit of a chance of that happening, but
Yeah. So we could see a
overall, I
few
think he's
suspensions going down the line. One a
could
red
be
card,
could be
was it a yellow card every 2 games? So that doesn't bode
on
well, does it?
average.
Especially in the
Yeah,
Premier League where they get
but
you fat. Yeah,
honestly, he that like I'm saying this from the point of view of a Man United fan. We've got Eric Bailly,
yeah,
who's again massively aggressive, loves to get into tackles. We had Marcos Rojo before him, again another Argentinian,
yep.
similar player, love to get into tackles and sort of get stuck in. And these guys are a bit of a cult. Heroes among the fan base. You love to see them getting into tackles. The entire stadium erupts. So that's the sort of thing I think you can expect from Romero in terms of he will sort of get the fan base going.
So another question we got from Wayne: can Romero play sweeper if it's a back three, of either behind or forward of the other two centre backs? Has he ever played that formation, or can he play like that?
Definitely, he's played that at Atalanta, at Genoa as well. He is pretty quick, so he can sort of sit back and sweep up. If he's playing in a back three, he can, as I said, he has almost almost the majority of his minutes. Not even almost, I'd say the vast majority of his minutes for Atlanta came as the central center back in that back three. So
Okay.
a lot of times he was the guy sweeping up, where it's the other two guys sort of stepping up, and he's the guy maybe sitting back a little bit and covering space behind. So he can
Yep.
definitely do that.
Okay, and Wayne, thanks for all your questions, Wayne. They're really, really good questions. Romero sounds like an old school centre back, something we've needed at Tottenham for a long time. So something like the old Graham Roberts, the really strong centre backs. The thing is that worries me is, who is going to be his partner, and if Romero is pushing up high, is the partner going to cover for him, and how is that all going to work? So I think there's a bit of bedding in to be done, don't you think, Harshal?
Yeah, definitely. From what I've seen, I think probably Joe Rodon could be one of the partners he
Mm.
could have in a back four.
Yep.
It looks like Tanganga is going to be the right back unless
Mm.
Tomiyasu comes in. It looks like Tanganga is going to be the right back. So
Yep.
uh, Joe Rodon, I don't know what's happening with Eric Dyer, but if Eric Dyer sticks around, he could be another guy who is the person who stays back while Romero's the more aggressive player. If it's a back three, I think that suits him a lot more. I genuinely think the way Spurs are going about their recruitment, especially now if they get Tomiyasu as well, it's very well suited to play in a back three, because Tomiyasu has also played a lot in a back three for Bologna, and as I said, Romero's done that as well. Dyer's done that a few times. Rodon's done that. Ben Davies can play as a left-sided centre back in a back three. So I spoke about this, I think, on a video earlier on the channel as well, where I said that I think Nuno's going to go with the back three. It doesn't look like that,
It
but
doesn't look like that. He's
who
gone
knows?
in the pre-season friendlies. He's all
Yeah,
4-4-2.
maybe it could be that he's waiting for the recruitment to get done. That might be
Maybe.
something that
Yeah.
he. I think it's also a little bit sensible in the sense that Spurs generally played with the back four. I think it makes sense to introduce them to something that they're used to at the moment, and then maybe try and get them into another system, which is say a back three later on in the season once they've
Hmm.
bedded in with the new manager, the new coaching staff, all of that. So maybe that's the case. But yeah, I do think if Spurs do get Tomiyasu as well, that they're very well suited to playing with the back three and wing backs.
But it seems like if we go with the back four, then this is going to be something quite different for Romero, isn't it? He's going to have to adjust, like we said. So he needs some help from the other centre backs in terms of position, how far he pushes up, how far he drops
Exactly.
back,
Yeah.
etc. The line. So I'm not sure there's anybody in the Tottenham other centre backs who could do that. I'm not Sanchez and Dyer need help themselves.
So it'll come down to Nuno. I think Nuno himself will have to sort of drill those concepts into him. I don't think the good thing. I wouldn't say the good thing. I don't think the sensible thing to do is to try and curb his aggression. It's a massive part of his game. It's what uh, has brought him so much success, and it'll actually play pretty well in the Premier League, where referees are a lot more lenient than they are in other leagues. They let
yeah,
a lot of stuff go by, which you might get whistled for in Spain or Italy, for
sure,
example.
sure.
So that
So
sort of
wait,
thing might help him.
yeah, Wayne is saying I think Nuno will start Romero with Dyer at the back. But I think Rodon and Tanganga would suit playing alongside him. Yeah, I think a back three with Romero, Romero, Rodon, and Tanganga could be good. But then Tanganga, does Nuno see him as a centre back or a right back? I'm not sure.
Yeah.
That's an interesting
And
one.
another thing I just want to talk about Romero is that when you're playing in a back three and you're one of the centre backs, you will need to also be good on the ball,
Yep.
because a lot of ball progression responsibility falls on the centre backs.
Mm-hmm.
Romero is not that great at that. So if you look at the work he's done at Atalanta, the majority of his passing would be out wide to the wing backs or to his centre back partners. He's good. He's I'd say he's good at sort of recycling possession and keeping it ticking, but he's not that great at sort of providing that penetration from deep. He can carry the ball forwards, and he's okay at it. He's not great at it. So in that sense, I can see the logic of playing him in a back four, because again, if you're in a back four, you've got midfielders to pick up the slack in terms of ball progression. If it's a
Yep.
back
Yep.
three, I think Romero would probably work as the central centre back. Again, if Tomiyasu comes in, he's the right-sided centre back. Tomiyasu is actually very good at progressing the ball, so I can see that working. But
So,
a lot of ball progression. I don't think a lot of ball progression responsibility will fall on Romero, because he's not really shown the ability to be good at it so far.
right. So Steve is saying, thanks, Steve. Thanks for your question. Sounds like playing alongside Toby would have been perfect, and the whole head alongside him. Rodon is too experienced and Dyer is too hot-headed. What do you say to that, Harshal?
Yeah, I think Alderweireld would have been a good partner, although he's obviously now no longer at Spurs. Uh, that could have worked, because he has the experience, he has the ball playing ability. Obviously, we've seen that,
Yep.
so he could have taken on that side of the game where um, Romero could be the one stepping up, doing a lot of the defensive work. But again, I can see that working with Dyer as well, because I think Dyer, in my opinion, does better when he's the sweeper, in the sense that he's the guy staying back. So I can see the Dyer Romero partnership working. I can see the Rodon Romero partnership working as well. So it's not um, too bad, to be honest. As I said, there will be a little bit of adjustment required, but his natural game, I think, already suits the Premier League, because he is an aggressive centre back. The physical side of things will not really come as a surprise. So it's just about the timing of a lot of these things, and knowing when to step out, when to stay back, knowing your positioning relative to your defenders, relative to the midfielders, and all of that. So that's just in terms of him bedding into the Spurs team with his teammates, with new coaches, all of that. That's where it'll take time. In terms of his adaptation to the Premier League as such, in terms of physicality, I don't think that's going to be a problem.
Yep. Steve is saying, I think in time Jaffet Tanganga is a centre back. So I agree with you, Steve. Marino didn't see that, so him as a right back, but I think he could be a good centre back. I've got another here from Wayne. Wayne is saying Toby would have been ideal. Unfortunately, I agree with you 100%, Wayne, but he's gone now. Don't we need a centre back, experienced centre back? We need an experienced centre back? 100% agree, Wayne. But Tomiyasu is not that experienced. He's only 21, 22.
No.
Harshal?
Tomiyasu's
I was
older.
told. Is he older? Is he Okay,
Tomiyasu's
fine. 26 or something like that. So
Tomiyasu's actually, he's not that old. He's 22, 23.
Okay, so is he
Yeah.
Rain is saying we need an experienced centre back. Do you think Tomiyasu could be that experienced centre back?
I mean, now when you see the thing with Tomiyasu that's really impressive is that he's ridiculously flexible. He's played
Okay.
in a back three. When I say he's played in a back three, he's played on the right side of the back three. He's played on the left side of the back three. He's played at right wing back, and he's played as the right-sided centre back in a back four, and he's played as a right back.
Oh, okay.
And he's done all of this really well.
So
It's
he's
not
really
like
top. Yeah.
there's not a drop. There's no drop in performance in terms of when he switches positioning, whether he's
What's
playing
his
as
best
the right.
position though, Harshal? What's his best position?
Again, this again goes back to when Nuno was first appointed, when we saw the links to Tomiyasu come out. Now that they've signed Romero, I always thought that it will be a back three, especially if Romero comes in and Tomiyasu, because I think it's the ideal back three where you've got, say, either Ben Davies or Joe Rodon as the left-sided centre back, Kuti Romero as the central centre back, Tomiyasu as the right-sided centre back, with Doherty as the wing back, and Reguilon on the other side. Sessegnon can come in and play as a left-sided wing-back as well. But if it's a back four, I can see Tomiyasu probably will be the right back, I think. I don't think if it's a back four, I don't think Tomiyasu will play at centre back unless needed, unless there are injuries or players unavailable and that sort of thing. I see him playing as the right back in a back four, but if it's a back three, he'll probably play as the right sided centre back or maybe a right wing back on occasion.
We've got another question here for you. Illogical Future, thank you for your question. Brute forced aerial threat, tall target man Vlahovic or flary Argentinian dribbler Lautaro? Which one is best, do you think, for Tottenham?
A lot of it depends on whether Harry Kane stays or not. Because,
Yep.
I mean, if Kane stays, then I think Lautaro would be a better player to get. If Kane leaves, then I honestly you need both. To be honest,
I think you need both then, don't you? Yeah.
Yeah. But obviously that's not going to happen. But if Kane leaves, I think Vlahovic would be a good option. Not that Lautaro wouldn't. Lautaro would also be a very good option. So the thing is now Vlahovic, as the question says, he is a very old-fashioned number 9. He's good. He's really good in the air, but he's also similar to Kane in the sense that he drops off the front line and tries to link with the attacking midfielders and the wingers, and then tries to get into the box and obviously get on the end of crosses and all of that. He's got good ball control in the box. He's very good. He's a left-footed player. He's very good with his left foot, but he can also score with his right. And he, as I said, he's that sort of old school target man who you can aim long balls up towards, and he'll win you the ball in the air or win the second ball and all of that.
But in terms of his stats, Harshal. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Apologies. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, Lautaro, on the other hand, he's extremely energetic. He'll keep. So one thing to note is that during his time at Inter, he's played the majority, not even the majority, I'd say almost the entirety of his spell at Inter has been in a two-man strike force with Romelu Lukaku. So that's very different to leading the line alone. If, say, Martinez was asked to play as the sole centre forward in a 4-3-3 or a 4-2-3-1, it would be very different to what he's doing or what he's been doing at Inter as part of a front two. Because what that front two have been doing for Inter is that Lukaku would sometimes be the one stretching the back line, making runs in behind, and then Lautaro Martinez is the guy floating around. Those roles were reversed at times. At times, it would be Lautaro Martinez making the runs in behind and Lukaku dropping deep. But when you're you're the only guy, you're the only centre forward, you might have to do a bit of both, which is what Kane does. Although I think Kane is dropping deep a lot more now rather than running in behind. But Martinez would probably have to do a bit of both. In terms of off the ball, he is insane in terms of his pressing, his work rate. He's among the top 15% in Europe over the last year, across Europe's top 5 leagues, I'd say, in terms of pressing stats. Yeah. So that would have to tie in with what Nuno wants to do, because if Nuno, doesn't really want to press from the front, then Lautaro Martinez doesn't really make a lot of sense, because pressing is not just about aimlessly running forwards. You need to time it. You need to know when to press. You need to know what positions to take up. You need to know what your teammates are doing, because an unorganized press is very easy to play through, and then it just leaves your team vulnerable because you've got 5 players up the pitch and you're vulnerable to being counterattacked. So a lot of it will depend on whether Kane stays and what sort of system and what sort of setup Nuno's trying to build at Spurs.
So if Kane does leave, it's got to be Lautaro cannot play the single up front on his own. He needs somebody with him, a strike partner. Is that what we're saying, really? For maximum benefit and penetration, he's got to have somebody else with him.
Probably. I'm not saying he can't do it, but like, for example,
it's not his skill set, basically. It's not what he's been doing with Inter.
It's not what he's been doing. Yeah, exactly. There's not a lot of I'd say there's not a lot of it's not a large sample size if you want to look at how Lautaro Martinez could do as a sole striker. But I mean, for example, there are encouraging signs. I mean, he's just 5'8", but he's excellent in the air. He scored, I think, if I'm not mistaken, he scored 4 headed goals both last season and the season before in Serie A, which is, and he's generally a very good header of the ball. He's one of those guys who's not that tall, but he's very good in the air, you know. So, but again, that works in the penalty area where, and the reason for that is he's very good in terms of anticipation, movement, making sort of runs where, you know, he'll dart one way and then move the other, sending the defender, you know, to get that extra yard in the box. And that works in the box because then you get that space for that split second when the ball comes in and you can head it in. But he's not going to be great at, you know, if you're going to be asking him to hold the ball up or aiming long balls towards him and asking him to win headers against, say, a Van Dijk, for example. He's not going to be able to do that. Excuse me. He's not going to be able to do that. So a lot of it will depend on what style of play Nuno wants to play with, because if it's a fluid front three where you've got, you know, quick players alongside him, he's able to sort of vary his positioning. He can almost play almost as a false nine in the sense that he's dropping off the back line. You've got maybe Son making runs in behind, Lucas Moura, Steven Bergwijn, Brian Hill, these guys making runs in behind. That can work. But if you're asking him to be something like what Kane is, where Kane is excellent at holding the ball up. Kane is he's excellent at sort of spreading the play. He's very good at being a playmaker and then obviously getting in and scoring the goals as well. That's not Lautaro's skill set. Lautaro's skill set is in the box, but outside the box, he's good at, as I said, because he's playing with Lukaku in a front two. A lot of times he's been able to get in space because Lukaku's the guy occupying the defenders and he's dropped off and got space. That might not be possible if he's playing as the lone striker.
Just to finish off on Lautaro, and then we'll talk about some other players, but where's the majority of his goals coming? Are they mainly in the box, or basically he's a fox in the box type of player, is he?
Oh, he has scored quite a few goals from outside the box.
Okay.
But the primary sort of areas from where he scores his goals are in the box. So
great.
Again, if I get back into XG and all of that sort of thing, he had an XG of 14 last season. He scored 15 goals, so he outperformed his XG by just a little bit. But the major he took about 3.7 shots per 90, which is a decent number in terms of, if you look at across Europe's top 5 leagues, I'd say it's actually really good. He's in the 95th percentile. He's in the top 5% for shots taken among strikers in Europe's top 5 leagues over the last year. So he does take a lot of shots, and as I said, he's good at scoring, at converting his chances. Not too many shots from outside the box. The majority of his shots are from inside, which is why he has a pretty good conversion rate, you know. So like I said, his movement, his anticipation, all of that lends itself to being a fox in the box. But he's not a poacher in that sense. He as I said, he's extremely aggressive off the ball, and he works well if you ask him to press in as part of a coordinated pressing system. So it'll be interesting if that transfer does go through and he does arrive at Spurs. It'll be interesting to see how Nuno sort of sets up the team to bring out the best in Martinez.
Yep. And we got some more questions here. Is Dyer the main free kick taker? With the laugh sign. I don't think Dyer is going to be a free kick taker. Or for such skill.
No, it looks like that. It looks like that from preseason. From what I've seen in preseason, it looks like Dyer is the main free kick taker. But I think that's also because Kane's not been around, right?
Yeah. And also, what do you think about James? I mean, he's not really. We have been. Thank you for that, illogical. We've been linked with James Ward-Prowse. What's he like?
I genuinely don't think. Yeah, before I sort of give my views, I don't think James Ward-Prowse is leaving Southampton. Southampton have already lost. They've lost Ryan Bertrand on a free transfer to Leicester. They've lost Danny Ings for 25 million, which is a good price given that he had just a year left on his contract. But they've lost basically their main goal scorer to Villa.
Yeah.
From reports that we're seeing today, Yannick Vestergaard is going to Leicester as well. I don't think they're going to let James Ward-Prowse go as well. He's their captain. He's been one of the most important players of the last, say, 18 months or so. So I don't think he's going anywhere. But yeah, in terms of the player, obviously the set piece threat is massive. He's excellent from dead ball situations, corners, free kicks. We saw that last season.
Did the stats show? Is he the best set piece taker in the Premier League? What did the stats say?
He's one of the best. He's one of the
one of
best
the
in the
best,
league,
yeah.
definitely. Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
But that's from dead ball situations.
Yeah,
In
of course,
open
yeah.
play, in open play, he's okay. He's decent. He's not that great from open play.
Okay, so I've another question from Henry. We've spoken about Lautaro Martinez and Zakaria.
Enes Zakaria is 24-year-old Swiss central midfielder who
Okay,
plays for Borussia Mönchengladbach, defensive midfielder who plays for
yeah.
Borussia Mönchengladbach.
Okay,
I didn't know he'd been linked to Spurs, but he's someone who can do a very good job in terms of protecting the defense, in terms of sitting in front of the defense, and then letting the other guys step up and do the creative side of things.
yeah.
So that would be a decent buy, but I think that Spurs have that side of things covered with Pierre-Emile Højbjerg. So I don't
I
see
tell you
them
one.
moving for Zakaria.
Yeah, I tell you one. Well, I mean, Højbjerg. It'd be interesting to see. What do you think Højbjerg actually does? I mean, he can't really make a forward pass, and his movement is not that great. But
No,
he's
that's no. Go on, Ray. I'll let you
is that
finish.
wrong? Sorry, I'm just saying this. What other people have said to me.
Yeah.
He doesn't make a forward pass. His movement is not that great. He's not really a defensive. I mean, he just breaks up play basically and doesn't add anything other than that. What do you think of that point of view?
No. So again, that's an interesting point because that that sort of brings to light the fact that how the manager uses you a lot of times determines what you're doing. Obviously, it determines what you're doing on the pitch, but it also determines what the fans look at you like, or what the impression is. That's created. Mourinho used him as a defensive midfielder last season. He was used as that, as you said, the guy who'll sort of mop up in front of the back line and just keep the ball rotating.
Pass it
Or
sideways, yeah.
yeah, sideways passing, or basically recycle possession, give it on to the guy, to somebody else to try and create stuff. But that was the role he was asked to do by Mourinho. I thought he did a really good job at it. But I mean, if any of our viewers looked at Denmark during the Euros, he was playing as part of a double pivot for Denmark when they switched to a back three. And he was fantastic because he was the creative threat for Denmark. He was the guy getting forward. He was the guy making line-breaking passes. He was the guy sort of doing a lot of the creative stuff centrally for Denmark. And he was very good at it. And that's essentially what I'm getting at. I mean, I'll sort of also bring up a little bit of his history. He's played under Pep Guardiola at Bayern Munich, where if anybody has not read the book, please have a read of Pep Confidential by Marty Pernarau. It's essentially the breakdown of Pep's first season at Bayern Munich, the 2013-14 season, and Marty got access to the training ground to Pep. He's had conversations with Pep, the coaching staff, the players, all of that. And Pep Guardiola believed that at that time Pierre-Emile Højbjerg was 17 or 18 years old. He was just coming through the Bayern academy. Pep Guardiola believed that Pierre-Emile Højbjerg could potentially be one of the best midfielders in the world because he was so good at receiving the ball under pressure. He was so good at his positioning, knowing where and when to position himself to pick up the ball and then make forward passes. And that he was Pep wanted to sort of, I wouldn't say build the team around him, but he was very, very enthusiastic about Højbjerg. So that's the sort of
So he's got it in his locker, but he needs to be able to get that from the manager.
Exactly.
He's got it in his locker. Yeah, that's a good point.
Exactly.
That's very good.
He has that, and he showed that with Denmark at the Euros. So it's a question of letting him being, it's a question of what Nuno is going to do with him as the season goes on.
Sure. So let's talk about another player signing we've made, Brian Hill. I think the G is pronounced Hill. And we sold him. Well, we got rid of Eric Lamela, and now we've got Brian Hill in. So what is Brian Hill going to bring us that Eric Lamela potentially didn't give to us? What's the value of bringing Brian Hill in?
So he's, 20 years old?
Yeah.
Excuse me. He's already been capped, I think, 2 or 3 times by the Spanish senior side. He was part of the Spain side that lost in the Olympics final just about a few days ago to Brazil. So he has an Olympic silver medal now. He's one of a dying breed of players, I'd say, because he's one of the very few pure wingers that you'll see at the top level. because almost every winger that you see nowadays is an inverted winger where they look to cut inside, come in field, where they're playing on the opposite side of the strong foot. So essentially, if you're playing on the left, you're a right-footed player. If you're playing on the right, you're a left-footed player because you're looking to
Okay,
come
that's what
inside.
inverted wingers mean. Yep. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, Hill is very much an old school winger. He's left-footed and he plays on the left. He
Oh, right.
hugs the
Okay.
touch. He'll hug the touch line and sort of try and get crosses into the box. He's very much an old school, old fashioned winger in that sense. If you look at his sort of statistical profile, he was in the top 2%. He was in the 98th percentile for crosses among all wingers in the top 5 European leagues last year,
Yep.
where he was on loan at Eibar in La Liga from Sevilla. Eibar were relegated. He was obviously on loan there. He's gone back to Sevilla, and now he's come on a permanent deal to Spurs. So even at a team like Eibar, who would not, you know, um, obviously towards the top end of La Liga, they weren't a very good attacking side. He was still, as I said, he was in the top 2% for crosses delivered across all wingers in the top 5 European leagues. If you look at dribbling, he was in the top 10%. He was in the 90th percentile for dribbles attempted. So this is, as I said, he's a very much an old school winger. He's very good at taking players on, dribbling past them. He's very good at carrying the ball. When I say carrying the ball, um, I'm not talking about dribbling. Dribbling is where you sort of try and get past a player, and that's the dribble. But carrying the ball is where you pick up the ball and you progress with the ball at your feet, considerable distances.
Yeah, no, I understand that. Yeah. So
Think of
as
Messi.
Bill is saying, he's like Waddle. Chris Waddle was a typical old style winger where he just took the ball on his left and crossed it. So he's basically like a new Chris Waddle. So, what about goals? How many goals can we expect from Brian Hill? Is he, typically
Now,
in a season?
now, see, he's a good finisher. He's got the ability to score goals, but this is one of his weaknesses. Where I don't know if it's a weakness as such, but it's a blend of the fact that he's, as I said, because he looks to stay wide. He doesn't get into goal scoring positions too often because obviously when you're out wide, you're not
Yeah,
near the
exactly.
goal. You're not near the goal mouth, right? He does tend to come infield sometimes. On some occasions, you'll find him in the sort of left central spaces, the half space on the left side, where he's trying to combine with his teammates and the fullback is overlapping. But more often than not, it's Hill who's the guy who's stretching the play on the left flank. So he scored, I think. Just let me have a look. He scored 4 goals last season against an XG total of 4.22, so more or less matched his XG total. But that XG total also tells you that it's not like he got into a lot of good goal scoring positions in the first place, So it, I don't think you can expect too many goals in that sense, especially if he's used in a similar role. Because if
Yeah.
Nuno uses him as that out and out winger on the left, then
I
he's
think
not
the
really going to
important,
get into the box.
yeah. So the important one for me is assists. So how many assists did he get last season?
He got, excuse me, he got 4 assists, but he had an expected assist tally of 7. So it was his teammates finishing that let him down a little bit. And again, I'd like to look at a couple of other statistics to gauge his creativity because
Yep.
when you look at FBREF again, there's something called shot creating actions, which is essentially the two actions prior to a shot being taken that are credited to the player. So these actions can be dribbles, passes, ball recoveries, that sort of thing. So, say, for example, if Harry Kane took a shot, what were the two actions immediately before that shot was taken? Was it so if Brian Hill sort of dribbled past a player and then passed to Harry Kane, and then Harry Kane takes a shot, that sequence of the two previous actions before a shot taken, that sort of helped create that shot, right? So when you look at creating actions per 90 across the top 5 European leagues, he was in the top 15, 14 odd percent, I think 76 percentile for shot creating actions among the top 5 European leagues for wingers. He was in the 90th percentile for passes into the penalty area. Again, that's not just including, I mean, that includes crosses. And as I said, he's been one of the most high volume crossers across Europe. but that also includes just generally passes into the penalty area. So his creativity, he it's not like he's not a creative player. He can create chances, and as I said, his main threat comes from his dribbling and ball carrying. When you look at, as I said, the FBRAF sort of breaks down the SCA as well, the shot creating actions, into shot creating actions from passes, from dribbling, so you can see exactly what are the actions where a player is, proficient at creating chances or creating shots for his teammates. And when you look at SCA from dribbling, when you look at creating actions from dribbling, he's in the 91st percentile across the top 5 European leagues for
Yep.
wingers.
Yep.
And
So,
he's very similar, I'd say, in that aspect. He's very similar to Jack Grealish, because Jack Grealish is also someone who's very good at taking players on and going past them and creating chances, and that's what you can expect from Brian Hill. But the only difference being, while Grealish will sort of, if he's playing on the left, he comes infield, you're more likely to see Brian Hill go outside the fullback or stay wide and cross the ball in.
what about penalties? Is he in the box? Did he make defenders give away penalties or free kicks? Is he one
Again,
of the most fouled players?
he does get fouled a little bit, but as I said, because he's usually out wide,
Yep.
he's not he's not someone who you can sort of expect maybe penalties from. So, and even in terms of fouling, it's not like he drew too many fouls. But I'd actually put that down to the fact that he's very good at getting past the player. So he doesn't give the player the opportunity to foul him. He's gone past the player before
Sure,
they can
sure,
foul him.
sure. And what formation did Ibar play? Was it a 4-4-2 or 3-5-2 or what?
It
What
was
was?
it was it was the majority of times it was a back four. So he was, either if
Just on
it's
a
a four four
winger, the
two or
4-4-2 mainly,
4-3-3,
yeah.
4-4-2, 4-3-3, 4-2-3-1, whatever it may be, he was that old-fashioned winger on the right, on the left. Sorry.
So, in what situations can you see Nuno playing him? I mean, would he play maybe in the Europa Conference League, or maybe secondary cup? He's not really ready. Do you think he's ready for the Premier League now or not?
Yeah, I think, again, as with every new signing, and he is again just 20 years old. So there will be a period of bedding in. So towards the start of the season, I expect to see him used again, mainly probably in the Europa Conference League, mainly maybe in the Carabao Cup,
Yep.
because obviously the FA Cup starts in January, so more or less half the season would have gone by then. I do
Yeah.
expect him to feature in the league a little bit, but it'll all depend on how he settles into the group, how he's performing in training, what sort of system Nuno wants to deploy, and not even system, what sort of roles Nuno wants, because I mean, it's not like Nuno doesn't like this sort of player. I mean, when you look at Wolves, he's used Adama Traore who's a pretty similar player, because Traore is also someone who stayed out wide on the right, very good at dribbling, absolutely rapid, and that's what he would do under Nuno at Wolves, where he'd stay out wide on the right and get past players and cross the ball. Although his role did evolve as time passed, where he was sometimes used even as a part of the front two, where if Nuno played with a 3-5-2, he was Traore played at times as one of the two strikers. He's played at times as part of a front three when they've played a 3-4-3. So it depends on how Nuno is able to
Do,
build up his profile as part of the Spurs squad.
do you think Nuno do you think Hill is a Nuno player? Has Nuno bought players like Hill? You mentioned Adama Traore, but he's a bit of a freak because the guy's built like a boxer and he can run like 100 meters more faster than anybody. But is Hill a Nuno type of player, or do you think this is somebody Paratici has brought in and now Nuno has to work with him?
I think it's more of a Paratici buy than Nuno, because I think it's one that's been scouted for some time and brought in. Whether by
Yep.
Paratici is someone who's been uh, you know who's a bit of a football nerd, in the sense that there have been reports of him watching football throughout the week during his time at Juventus, and he is someone I think who would have had Hill on his radar.
Mm.
But in terms of, so the thing is, in terms of Nuno, Nuno has worked with younger players at Wolves as well. You've got Pedro Neto, Daniel Podence in as part of the current squad at Wolves as well, who we worked with last season. Uh, Fabio Silva, who's 18 and arrived at Wolves as their record signing
Yep.
last season. So and he does give them confidence. He does give them that platform to go out and try and express themselves. But they do obviously need to fit into the tactical framework that he's trying to build. So, as I said, it'll come down to how he performs in training and what sort of system Uno wants to deploy. But I can definitely see, say, Hill being one of the guy, part of a front three, for example. If it's a 4-3-3 or even a 4-2-3-1, he can be the guy sort of stretching play on the left. And then, assuming Kane stays, for example, you've got Kane as the striker. You've got maybe Son playing off Kane as a sort of withdrawn forward, or you can have Bergwijn or Lucas on the right. So it'll be interesting to see how that develops. But I definitely don't think he's going to start the season in the 11 in the
Yep.
first choice 11. It'll
Has
take
he
a
got a
while
lot?
for him to get there.
Has he got a lot of pace? Is he a fast winger?
Yeah, he is quite fast. He is,
Okay,
as I
fine. Yeah.
said, he that ties into his dribbling skills, which
Sure.
is
Sure.
why I think it'll work pretty well if Spurs play with in a counter-attacking style, if they're playing in a transition-based approach where it's fine if the opposition has more of the ball, but when we get the ball back, we're going to counter-attack. We're going to attack at pace, vertical passing, get the ball forwards quickly. He will be extremely good in that style of play. If it's a more possession-based style, um, it may require a little bit more adjustment because again, Ibar were a team that played a little bit on the counter attack. It might require a little bit more adjustment from Hill. Again, not
Yep.
saying that he can't do it, but
Yep.
he'll thrive, I think, in my opinion, if it's a transition based approach.
Yeah, you got some comments. Bill is saying if you're good enough, you're old enough. I agree 100%, Bill. If you're good enough, you're old enough. I 100% agree with that. Henry is made a comment here now. He wouldn't want Adama Traore. I have a feeling we're going to get more Portuguese players due to Nono. What do you think about that? Are we going to
No,
get more
that
Portuguese players because of the Jorge Mendes tie-up and everything like that? And what do you think about the
no. So
fact
the
that
thing
is Adama
go on.
Traore a good signing for Tottenham or not?
Not really, because I
Mm,
think Spurs have enough wingers.
yeah,
Assuming nobody from the attacking sort of department gets sold, so
yeah,
you've got Bergwijn, you've got Lucas, you've got Hill, you've got Son, you've got
yeah,
four wingers there.
yeah,
Sessegnon can play on the wing as well,
yeah,
further up the field. So I don't really think there's a need to get another winger in. In terms of the Portuguese influence, the thing is that Wolves, Jorge Mendes he had an active role in recruitment. He's got he was part of. He wasn't part of it officially, but he has close links to Fosun, the Chinese sort of conglomerate that own Wolves. Uh, so the deal that was made when Wolves were bought by Fosun, I think Jorge Mendes had a part to play in that, and he's been part of their framework ever since, which is why you've seen that sort of Portuguese, the influx of Portuguese players at Wolves because of
yeah,
Jorge Mendes and Nuno, obviously,
yeah.
but I don't think it's the same thing at Spurs because
Okay.
Nuno's obviously one guy. Jorge
Yeah,
Mendes is his agent. It could be a little bit agent driven in that sense, but because you've got Fabio Paratici, who is going to be the director of football,
yeah,
I would think that it's not going to be that sort of Portuguese influence because Wolves are a separate case altogether where
yeah.
they've embraced that Jorge Mendes approach, whereas that's not the case here.
Sure, sure, sure. No, that's a good point, actually. Thanks for that, Henry. We got Grandpa Stevens. Grandpa, thank you very much for joining. We really appreciate that, taking the time to join the stream. Up, you're keeping well. What's Grandpa saying? I think Gill is possibly one of those let's wait and see signings. Yes, I agree. That the whole club would have signed off on. We haven't taken enough risk in that way in recent times. We learned some lessons. Harshal, your thoughts on that? Let's wait and see
Yeah, because
signings.
no, it works, right? Because he's, as I said, he's 20. There's no, and he's been someone who's come into the spotlight over the last year or so. A lot of uh, people in football have sort of sat up and taken notice of him. So it's not a bad deal at all, I think, to get him in. And you've let Eric Lamela go as well, who was a good player, who had his moments, who offered a lot. But I think Spurs, as a club where they are at the moment, I think the way to forward is to try and get these sort of younger, hungry, and sort of upcoming talents. Because if you can develop them, you have it serves a lot of purposes. You can have a squad that's developing and growing together. You can have a squad that's sort of building together to then try and challenge towards Champions League places and all of that. And obviously, younger players mean that they have resale value, which if a club
Yeah.
comes along and makes an offer, you can sell them for good money. I mean, one of the best examples of that I can see is the Ben White's transfer to Arsenal from Brighton, 50 million, for a 23, 24-year-old centre back. So
Yep.
that's the sort of thing that I mean, Spurs unfortunately are not part of the absolute elite of English football at the moment, and I think the way to go forward is to embrace that and to try and make these sort of signings where you can then obviously capitalize on their potential. If a club comes in and offers a big sum of money because they're a young player with potential and they're performing well, great. If not, then you have the chance to develop them rather than spending money on players who are older or maybe even I wouldn't say past it, but where you're paying massive transfer fees, or if not transfer fees, you're paying massive wages, because that model I think is not the way forward.
Sure, sure. Okay, so the last one in the signings is Pierluigi Golini. I know we spoke about him previously, but question I have for you is he really going to challenge Lloris for the top spot, or is he just going to play in the cup games and the games that where we're going to rest Lloris? What's your view on that?
So initially, obviously, Lloris is the first choice. He's captain, but he is getting on in terms of age, and I think there are a few errors creeping in a little bit into his game. Not too much, but it's just that initial signs that you can see of a little bit of a decline happening.
Yeah, the
So
reflexes going, yeah.
not I wouldn't say the
I mean,
reflexes. It's
well,
more
what I mean
about
by that is being beaten at the near post and stuff like that.
I fair, but I would honestly say that it's a lot of his errors come from playing out from the back at times.
Yeah, we
That
can't
sort of
play very
judgment.
well. He's not good with the ball at his feet, is he?
He's good. He's not too bad, but he has that tendency of making an error.
Yep.
So, I mean, Gulini is someone he's 26, and to be on, he actually spent time in England previously. He was on
Yeah,
Manchester United's books for a couple
Manchester.
of
Yeah.
seasons. I believe he didn't I don't remember the reason why United we let go of him. I think it was either a work permit issue or basically that we had top class goalkeeping talent available already. But he went on to Italy again, and he's sort of proven himself massively over the last couple of seasons at Atalanta. He actually had a falling out with Gianpiero Gasperini earlier this season, where he was benched for a few games, brought back into the side, but the relationship between Gulini and Gasperini had sort of broken down, which is why they've sold him. Which is why not sold him. I mean, obviously it's a loan
It's a
with
loan
the
with a view to a permanent transfer. Yeah, which is
yeah.
I think
I believe
it's good. It's a risk-free option for Tottenham. Buy get him on
exactly.
loan, pays wages. If he doesn't do well, send him back to Atlanta.
Yeah, I believe the deal is that if he plays 20 games, I think the deal it'll become a permanent transfer.
Okay.
But in that sense, yeah, I mean, if he does play 20 games, it tells you that he's done well, right? So uh, he's a pretty good, solid keeper. As I said, proved his ability at Atalanta. And if you want to look at statistics, he's just above average in terms of. So I'd actually like to bring in another metric that's used in football, which is linked to XG. So now I've explained earlier on an earlier video what XG is. The thing with XG is that it's measured before the shot is taken. What I mean, not before the shot is taken, but it doesn't take into account where the shot is in terms of where it's on goal. So now an XG, say for example, a shot has an XG value of 0.25. What that basically means is that it has a 25% chance of going in. But what is that based on? That's based on where the shot is taken from, where defenders are positioned, which foot the player took the shot from, whether it was a header or whether it was a shot with his foot, all that sort of thing. There are mathematical models that work that sort of thing out based on historical data, and you get that value of okay, that shot has a value of 0.2. But I mean, the player could have put it over the bar, right? So it had a value of 0.2, but it's not gone. It's not even on target. So another way of looking at shots is something called post shot XG or PSXG. What that does is that looks at the shot and it's XG in that sense after it has been taken. So automatically, every shot that is not on target has a post shot XG of 0, because obviously if it's not on target, it's got 0 chance of going in.
Yep.
So every shot that's not on target has a post shot XG of 0. For shots that are on target, they're given a post shot XG value based on where they're placed. So if it's a shot that's in that posted stamp, the top corner,
Yep.
it'll have a much higher post shot XG value than something that's central, that can, or at at a height that can be saved easily. Again, mathematical models that have looked at shots from across time, it's a massive sample size, and you arrive at probabilities based on that. And one of the best examples I can think of to illustrate this is actually the goal, if you guys remember, the goal that Harry Kane scored, I believe it was against Palace last season, where
Yep.
he sort of hit a shot first time across the goalkeeper into the corner. It was sort of bent into the corner. It was a really good goal, I remember. I believe it was a pass from the right, and he runs onto it and whips it into the far corner. That shot had an XG value of, I believe, 0.05. So based on where it was taken from, which foot, defender's positioning, all of that, it had a 5% chance of going in. But based on where Kane put it, based on where the ball went into the net, it had a 55% chance of going in. What I'm trying to say is that the post shot XG of that particular shot was 55%. So post shot XG is actually very valuable in two ways. One, when you're looking at strikers, to look at their finishing, because if you're someone whose sort of post shot XG is high, and that tells you that you're a good finisher, that you're putting the ball in the net
In the right positions, yeah.
In areas where the keeper can't save it. And again, that then also obviously means that you can look at goalkeepers in the same way. If you look at goals conceded versus the post shot XG, if you're a player for whom that number is a negative, and in the sense that your post shot XG is actually higher, or the post shot XG that you've faced is higher than the goals that you've conceded, that means that you're saving more goals than an average goalkeeper would have. That's also basically, this might be something that people would have seen on social media and stuff, where a lot of times you'll see a metric called goals saved by a keeper, average goal saved, where Hugo Lloris was actually top of that metric. He on average last season in the Premier League, he saved 5 more goals than the average Premier League goalkeeper would have. And that's basically based on post shot XG. His post shot XG total that he had faced, minus the goals that he had conceded, came out to a little over 5, positive 5, which meant that he had saved, on average, he had saved 5 more goals than the average Premier League goalkeeper, and he was top of the Premier League for that in terms of that metric in the Premier League last season. So when you look at Golini last season for Atalanta conceded 26 goals, but I think he had a post shot I can't find it. Yeah, he had a post shot XG of around 25. So it's not too much of a difference. It's not too bad. Yeah, he conceded 26 goals. He had a post shot XG of 25. So he had a little bit of a negative there. He might have conceded just about 1 goal than he would have been expected to concede, but that's not too bad. That puts him at about average in Serie A. So that is an area where he needs to improve. One area where he's really good at is coming out and claiming the ball,
right,
from crosses, from corners. That's one area where Lloris has a bit of a weakness.
He's very weak in that area. Lloris, he never comes for stuff. Yeah,
exactly. And when he does come, he tends to sort of spill it or not gather it cleanly. Yeah. Golini is brilliant at coming and claiming crosses. He is one of the best in Serie A at coming for the ball. So if, again, that sort of dials into the approach that Spurs want to take, if it's that sort of aggressive approach where the keeper comes and takes everything, Golini is perfectly suited for that. In terms of his goal saving, that's something that can be worked on, I think, in terms of work on the training field. But the clear difference with Lloris is where he is excellent at coming for balls in the air, where that's a clear weakness that Lloris has.
Yeah, and what about in terms of penalty saves? Is Galidi, what's his record in penalties?
I will have to look that up. I don't have that in front of me right now.
Okay, but he's
But
a
yeah,
lot taller than Lloris, isn't he?
yeah, and again, that's something that aids him when I'm talking about coming in claiming crosses. So that sort of adds into the profile that he has, where he can be so good in the air uh, as compared to Lloris.
So in terms of the squad we have this year, and let's assume Kane is still there, is it a lot stronger than what we had last year? Or, we've lost Lamella, we've lost Toby Alderweireld, we're probably going to lose some of the other players. What's your view about that?
Again, assuming Kane stays, I think it's a pretty decent squad. I think Spurs could do with one definitely a centre back, which again, if we've got Tomiyasu coming in, will be solved there. Uh, I think they need a creative midfielder. I don't know if they're going to get one, but other than that, I think there's a good balance in terms of the attacking players that Spurs have. I think Dele Alli will. I wouldn't say it's a make or break season, but he has the potential. And depending on just looking at how he's played in preseason, I think this could be another sort of impressive season from Dele Alli. If you remember, obviously, Spurs fans will remember the way he broke into the Spurs team and how brilliant he was when he first came in. I think the way he's looked in preseason, Dele Alli could be a massive, massive player for Spurs this season. So overall, it's a good squad. Nuno obviously is an excellent manager, but it depends. Again, there's still a lot unknown in terms of how he wants to play when the big games start. Not just in preseason. We've seen stuff in preseason, but when the big games come around, when um, players like Kane are back in, and assuming they stay, what's the overall style of play is something that'll determine a lot this season.
Okay, excellent, Harshal. Well, welcome to Matthias and Juan Pablo from Buenos Aires. Thanks, guys, for joining. Appreciate your time. We've had some good chat with Harshal about the different players in terms of the statistics and all that. Now that you're here, do you want to give us some your views on QT Romero, this great Argentinian that we've signed? He's going to be fixing our defense. JP, do you want to start on that? Give us your feedback on QT and how you think he's going to do. Harshal, feel free to stay, or if you have to go, it's up to you. But you're most welcome to stay.
Yep, absolutely.
I want to let Mati start, but
Okay.
Thanks for the invitation. It's great to be here again with you guys.
No, it's good to have you guys here.
Well, first of all,
welcome,
thank
Mati.
you. Good evening. Good
evening.
afternoon to Juan Pablo. And yes, obviously we are really thankful to have at least one world-class center back as Cuti Romero.
Yeah.
And I think he will be a great change in terms of he's really good individually, but also I think he will be he will make his, I don't know who is going to be the left center back. I don't know, Roland or whichever. I think they will have a great performance with Cuti Romero at their side, because he has a great confidence and he has a great timing. And obviously, if he begins his career in Tottenham with some errors or with some mistakes, it will be different. But what we saw in the national team in Argentina is, since the first second, he's really confident with the ball, without the ball, when having to make interceptions or tackles. He's a perfect player, what we have seen in Argentina. Obviously, in Atalanta, we knew there was an Argentinian center back that was playing really good, but we didn't know how good he was. And I think, although the price Tottenham bought Cuti Romero is a little bit high, we also have to know that the prices that are paid nowadays with White, with Varane also, that Cuti Romero with 42 million pounds and those variables. Also, I think it's a good price, a little overpriced, but it will be a great positive change in the Tottenham centre backs. That is our priority. Always said the position we need to change.
Yep. Okay. JP, did you want to say anything?
Yeah, so from the start in the national team, we saw that he was the difference maker at the back. And even though he played on 3 at the back in Atalanta, he was able to adapt so quickly in the national team that it was effortless. And in those games that he wasn't in, his non-presence was felt so much. And regarding his position making, I would say he's still learning. He even said it that he's learning a lot from Gasperini, and his positional awareness is yet not the best. But it's also the point in which we are expecting to have like a Tanganga type of player alongside him more than Dyer or the usual Davinson Sanchez, because it could benefit, right? Because I think Kuti can be the leader if given someone that will hear him. And if you put Kuti, which is 23 years old, next to someone that has been performing, even though at not the greatest level, has been performing in the league for so many years, it might be a challenge because Dyer might not want to be playing second fiddle to Kuti, and same with Sanchez. They are gonna try to be the leaders themselves when we don't need that, because we have already seen that they're not those leaders that we want.
No,
So
I understand that, yeah.
so Kuti is a great purchase. Unbelievable. We were so happy with Mati, like going through Twitter the whole day to see it said, Fabrizio said, here we go. Because it's one of those moves that really set you for the present, but also for the future. So let's hope we now get a good partner at the center back spot, or a good right back if Tanganga is finally given his deserved chance.
Well, this is one of the questions I had for Matty and you. Matty, I'll start with you. Who is going to, if let's say we assume we play, so there's two scenarios. In pre-season, Nuno has been playing a 4-4-2, but he's also the option of playing, 3 at the back. If we play 4-4-2, who do you guys think is the best partner for QT? Because let's assume QT is always going to start. And if we play in a back 3, who are the partners going to be? What's your views on that? Matty, what do you think?
I don't know, because Joe Rodon last season, before Mourinho left, was our best center back, I think, and he used to play in the left side in Swansea.
Yep.
And so I think he would be a great partner. But also, I think his partner should be a new player in Tottenham, a new transfer, because we all know Eric Dyer and Davinson Sanchez. Maybe they may have a great match or 2 great matches, but we know they, in some way, they are gonna make a mistake or something. We just know them, how they are. So I think if it's not Joe Rodon, that we have not seen him yet, if it's not him, I think there should be another investment there in the center back spot, and because that's what information was saying, that we were looking for another player in that position.
Okay, yep. So, so QT would normally play in the middle of a back 3, is that correct?
Yes, I think he can also play in both sides.
Both. Is he left-footed or
and
right-footed?
He's right-footed.
Right foot.
He can play the right stopper.
Oh, right. Okay, fine. Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, so we should hopefully get. Do you think maybe if we get Tomiyasu as a right of a back three, then we get Cutie in the middle and maybe Rodon on the left? That could be a good back three. What's your view on that?
We're
You don't
hoping
think so?
that we don't get Tomiyasu because
You don't like Tomiyasu, yeah?
it's not that we don't like the player. It's super plaster requirements because he has like the same traits that Tanganga has.
Yeah.
He used to be a center back. He now plays more in the right back. He's more defensive than offensive. The only difference is that Tomiyasu is taller and has one more year of development under his belt. That's the only difference that they have between those players. And again, I think the display that Tanganga had the other day at the right back position was really good, and he even assisted Sonny. So I don't think what else you can expect when, as Mati said, you need another one that can also give you muscle in the center of the defense, and that's why Vestergaard, that now is
Going to
about
Leicester,
to
is he?
sign with Leicester, was ideal because he was super tall, he had experience, and he was the leader in the Premier League. And we need someone like that. And we know that Lewis Dunk, for example, it's going to cost a fortune, so that's not an option now. So you're getting into a very short list of potential leaders that can really push this team one more level. Because let's not kid ourselves. Leicester without Fofana gives us a shot at the fifth spot, and if Manu or Liverpool or some of the other teams don't gel so well or something happens like injuries, you have a fighting chance for that fourth spot if you really buy another leader. Because don't forget, last season we had historic seasons from Kane, Sharice, and Son. With just a respectable defense, we would have done so much better.
Yeah, I agree with you. I 100% agree with you. So, Matty, who do you want us to buy as a centre-back partner for QT Romero then?
I don't know who I want. I know.
Who do you think we should buy? If you want to think about it, I'll go to Juan Pablo and let him answer. Who do you think? I mean, Vestergaard, I think it's too slow. He's tall, but I think he's just too slow. I'm not
I think
sure
it's
he would be.
for Mourinho, Vestergaard, but I don't know him really in deep. But I thought him as a centre back for Mourinho. Those near the.
I think who would be ideal was Milan Skriniar would be ideal, but I don't know if Inter are going to sell him. But we've got a question from Silence here about is there a chance we're getting Martinez or no? So. What do you reckon, guys? I mean, we've heard a lot of rumors about Lautaro Martinez. What do you guys hear from Argentina, etc.? What's the latest on that?
Well, here from Argentina is not the best information. I think the best information always will be, in this case, in Italy, with Fabrizio Romano and all Di Marzio and all these journalists. And I think it would be a great player, and I think the greatest signing in Tottenham history. But obviously, it is a great investment. It's around, I think, 80 million euros.
Yes, there's a lot of money involved in there. Yeah. Do you think he would want to come to Tottenham?
I heard of him that he likes Spain. And he does not like much Premier League, But
Yep.
obviously, when it comes to money or when it comes to another sort of things, is a great difference, and I think he should think about that. But I think if the money is there, he would be very interesting in coming to London.
Would it help to have Gio Lo Celso and Cuti Romero at the club? Will that make a difference for him?
Well, I think yes. Well, Cuti Romero said in his welcoming interview that he was very, that Lo Celso was very persuasive with him. They talked about the club, the training center, all those things that make Tottenham different, and I think it's a great difference Tottenham has with another clubs to have a little group of Argentinians.
Yep. Okay. What I mean in terms of the business, what's your thoughts on the business we've done so far, Juan Pablo? So we bought Brian Hill, we've bought Cuti Romero, we bought Pierluigi Golini. What do you think about that? Are you happy with those buys?
I think it's like very nice business so far. They have been getting so much money out of the door at this point, in contracts only. Like you have gain fees for Foyth, Toby, Show Hart. Now even today, Denis Sirkin, and big contracts that have gone away, like Toby, Rose, Lamela, Bales, even Show Hard. We were looking with Mati, and it's supposed that Cuti Romero is going to earn less than what Show Hard was earning last year. And we were like, what's going on? How could Paratici pull this off? So it's been like a very savvy business so far, because money was tight, and so far we're in profit, because even the Cutis transfer is a loan with like an obligation to buy.
Yep.
So that means that you don't have to pay right now, and all the money that you have been getting, you still have it for another players. And if you still sell more, like Wings, Sissoko, Aurier, Dyer, that's all funds to keep buying.
Yeah, the only thing is who wants to buy those players, I don't know. But oh, Matty's back. Hi, Matty. Matty, we've got a question here. I want to get your views on that. I feel like the next signings we should make, this is some silence, thank you. We should check be Skriniar, Tomiyasu, Damsgaard, or Noni Mandukela. Do you guys agree? What's your views on that, Matty?
Well, I think Noni Madueke would be a great signing, and obviously he was brought up in the Tottenham Academy, so it would be great to have it back. So mainly because he's having a great season. I think last Sunday, I think it was, he made 2 goals against Ajax, and it's a right winger, something that we need since Bale left, I think 8 years ago. And about Damsgaard, obviously, we all were surprised in the Euros, so it would be something interesting. I don't know if we need midfielders nowadays with the squad we have.
I think the reason there, Matty, is because the future of Ndombele is uncertain now. So maybe if he leaves.
Yes, sure. But also, well, he talks about Skriniar. I think we are a little bit. We just have done a great investment. Obviously, it is a loan, so it will be paid next year. But with Cuti Romero, I think we've done a great investment, and I don't know if they're gonna put the money another time. But yes, Tomiyasu, I think it's a cheaper option, and I don't know if would be a great signing, but it would be a player that may cover some spaces in the defense.
Yep. So let's speak about this, guys. If Harry Kane does leave, and we don't know if he's going to leave or not, Martinez, but is not used to playing as a sole striker. I've been understood, so he normally plays as is that correct or not? He can't
That's
play as a sole
correct.
striker.
Yeah,
So who would you
I'm
guys?
gonna let Mati talk about Martinez because he's the expert, because he saw him in his come out party in Racing. But yeah, he's definitely. What I'm gonna say is he's not a number 9. The prototype. Calvert-Lewin would be a great striker, like the certified number 9 that can head, can bully defenders, can go against anyone, has pace. So if we were to go for a typical number 9, if it were me, I would go for Calvert-Lewin because we know Haaland and Mbappe are impossible. So then you have to go with the different options. But it sounds a lot that Blajovic, it's also an option, and he's like very tall, can head. So that could very well be another possibility. But Mati, it's your time to talk about Martinez.
Yeah. Tell us all the insights about Martinez, Matty. Come on, I've been told you know a lot about him.
Well, I know him since, I think, 2016, when he started his career in Racing. That is the club that I support in Argentina. So I know him very well. In his beginnings, he had, I think it was the season 2017-18, in which he had, well, in the Libertadores, he had 2 or 3 matches where he had a hat trick and he scored many goals there. He was really near to go to the World Cup with Argentina. The Sampaoli, which was the Argentinian manager, went, I think, like 5 times to watch him in live in the stadium. But after that season, he left to Inter. His first season, like you said, he had to fight for his place with Icardi, and he played he played lonely in the number 9, and it wasn't that good that season. But then in 1920 and 2021, that was these last 2 seasons, he was amazing with Lukaku, and that's my main conflict with Lautaro in Argentina. With this last month in the Copa America, we've seen him as the only number 9 of the team, and he was really he could not make the difference to his level, to his game, because I think he needs someone alongside him that is the goal scorer, and he can also be a great goal scorer as Harry Kane. He can leave the place for another player to run in, but he also has a great definition. He has the quality, and his main attribute nowadays, I think, is to bother the center backs. He every time the ball comes in an aerial duel, or it's a foul for his team, or he wins the ball. But I think his main difference with all other strikers in the world, I think that is that aerial duels and all that. But if he plays alongside Harry Kane, I think it would be the greatest attacking duo in the world. like as he did with Lukaku. But I would also like to see him playing with Son, leaving him the space and Sonny entering with his runs. It's really interesting to it would be really interesting to watch him in Tottenham. But obviously the problem here is the money. It is really expensive. If we but also we need and we want to ¿cómo se dice aprovechar? To
Maximize.
we want to maximize the Inter situation that they're having, the financial situation that they are having nowadays. So if we want to go for Lautaro Martinez, it's now. It's this.
It's
this
got to
is
be
the
now,
time.
yeah, because that's when they're in trouble, aren't they? So do you think, as you said, his preference is Spain, but then the La Liga clubs, they don't have any money either. That's the problem. So he may come to the
But
UK. Sorry,
Alastair was saying today that he's keen to join Kuti and Lochedo, so that having both of them here was a really
Helpful.
good factor for him to actually say, you know what, I want to be in Tottenham. And let's not diminish something that's crucial. Our identity as a club, right? It's very Argentinian as well. Like the roots are set since Ardiles and Aquivisha. So our fan base needs Argentinians that have future and can grow and build and become legends at one point.
So if, let's assume Martinez comes, which I think would be great, who do we need to buy to work with him? Because let's assume Harry Kane is going to leave, because the money we think is coming from the naming rights, etc., from the money we're going to get from the stadium naming rights. But give me a name about who would he work well with, Martinez, in a European striker or somebody. Who do we need to buy to get the best out of Martinez then? Matty?
I don't know very well. I would like to see him in as the only striker with Sonny in his left and someone in his right.
So play as a front three then, yeah?
Yeah, I would like to see that, but I think as we had mentioned before, his best performances are with another player alongside him. So we should go for another striker who I think for another more physical. I think Blahovic is not that bad.
He sounds
and
like a good
he's
option.
also young, and I don't know if it's ideal, but it would be something great.
Okay, great. We've got another question here from one of the viewers. What are your thoughts on Sissoko being linked to AC Milan? Should we sell him as well as Ndombele and Aurier? What do you guys think about that? JP?
Sissoko. Like Napoli wants Sissoko, Davies, and I think even Aurier, they were being linked. Why don't we take them all for Koulibaly? Like, take all our rubbish players. Let's give you some money to take them. And let us have your star player that can be our defensive leader. But talking seriously about Sissoko, he has to go. Same with wings. There were rumors today that we're going for James Worth-Prowse.
I can't see him leaving. I can't see him leaving Southampton. He's the best player there. I don't think he's going to leave.
He has to. Like, he has to. If Vestergaard is going, he has to.
They've lost Ryan Bertrand already, Danny Ings. They've lost Vestergaard. They can't let him go as well.
Yeah, but they're probably in financial trouble as well. And
maybe,
as Mati was saying, this is the moment that all the money that wasn't spent before, you have to spend it, and you have to maximize this opportunity with all the teams that are fighting to keep the Blaze alive. Even France, why not go to France and go for Bodman on the chip? because
Yeah.
France lost 400 million euros on the television deal, and obviously not PSG, but everyone else. Even Paratici loves a war. Why not take a war
Yeah,
from
War is a good
Lyon?
option actually. Yeah, but
Yes,
what do you think about Ndombele? Should we keep him or should we get rid of him?
it depends. If he's gonna really blossom and put his effort in, he has to stay. But if he's not, like 3 years in a row that you're not in shape for, or it's reported that you're not in shape for preseason, that it's being told that you're not so happy with the situation because your friends are not here, and
Yeah,
you're being paid hurricanes and human songs money. Like, you cannot give those sorry excuses.
yeah,
You have to perform on the pitch daily, and if you're not up to the standard, Paratici has to take Ndombele, which is a huge asset, and make a swap with someone that is also great and
yeah,
that can really help us in the right places. Because in the new setup we saw, and this is the last time we will say, Nuno is playing Skip and Hoiberg, and probably will play Lo Celso de Leali, because he needs one player that's more incisive, that's more in the other penalty area, and two players that can hold. So in these new roles, and Ndombele, if he stays more as what we have been seeing, for only for Levy's request, right? So let's see what we can do with that asset.
What do you think, Matty? Do you think we should keep on Ndombele or get rid of him?
I think he's a great talent. He's a magician. I think the only player with that talent we've got in Tottenham, but it reaches a point that we have also Lo Celso, we have other alternatives. We can look for another players with the money we should earn by selling him or doing what we would do. But yeah, what happens is I really like Lo Celso, and I would not like to see him to see them both of them, Lo Celso and Ndombele, playing half of the match each, because we have two great talents, and we are playing half of the match with each of them, and I would like to see. Well, Lo Celso has something that in Argentina and Tottenham, I don't know if in Betis or PSG before, he only plays 70 minutes. So he has to have someone behind him really near, because in Argentina, I think it was Di Maria who entered when he was fatigued, or I don't know why, but it's something we can also talk very much about Ndombele, because we couldn't think him so far, so
Yep.
we have to see him how he performs in these first matches, and well, let's then we can have our opinions, I think.
Okay, guys. I mean, what's your team for the first match against Manchester City? What do you think should be the lineup? Juan Pablo?
So I believe Kuti cannot reach the game because he's still pushing with an injury.
Yep.
So that makes it hard against City. I don't want to see Dyer again, because even when he was playing with Tanganga, he was ball watching and letting players shoot, which he becomes an spectator on every game. And I think we both hate it with Mati. So um, if I would have to pick, it would be Choriz, Tanganga, Davinson Sanchez, Rodon, and Reilon, because Sessegnon is still out as well.
Yep.
Skip and Højbjerg with, let's just say, Lucas Moura, Lo Celso, Sonny, and Harry Kane.
Okay. Good team. What about you, Matty? Do you agree with that, or do you have something different?
I agree with that, but I would like to say what I expect from Nuno. Obviously, Lloris would be our captain in the goal. I think Tanganga made a great effort and a great match in the North London derby, and he deserves to be in the right back. I think he's gonna play Davinson Sanchez and Eric Dyer as he did last time, with Reguilon also, Højbjerg, Skip, and
Do you does Dele Alli get in your team or not?
In my team, no. In Nuno's team, I don't know. I think Dele Alli was playing because there were friendlies, but I think Lo Celso is going to be part of the team against Manchester City, and then obviously Lucas Moura at the right. I think Berwin at the right. Lucas Moura at the right. Sonny in the striker, and Berwin in the left, because I don't see Harry Kane playing this Sunday.
Bergwijn has put on a bit of weight. The people in London are calling him Burger Wine because he's put on a lot of weight. But we'll see what happens there. But listen, guys, I really appreciate you giving that information. It's really good feedback. Next time we'll have a good discussion on the start of the season and what your thoughts are and how it's doing. But any final thoughts before we leave? Let's start with you, Matty. Do you think Kane is going to stay and go? And what do you think Spurs are going to do next season?
No, I'd see him staying, but I don't see him starting in this Sunday.
Okay. And what do you think we're going to do this season in terms of position? Where are we going to finish?
I'm going to say 5th.
Okay. And score prediction for Sunday?
2-0 down.
Okay, fine. JP, what do you think? Where are we going to finish this season?
Yeah, I'm with Matty. I think we will finish 5th. Taking over Leicester and Arsenal. And Kane, I don't know. It seems that City is still pushing. I don't know. Something tells me that he's gonna be gone, and that's why we have been going and talking about Blažović,
exactly,
Martinez, because all that money that it's being said that we're gonna pay doesn't come from anywhere if it's Levy. So I think he goes. And I hate saying it, but I think he goes for 150 million. And we're going to use that money to sign Lautaro and Blažović.
Okay, great. I love that scenario, because if Harry Kane's heart is not in it, he should go. If he wants to leave, I think it's better to let him go. And what's your score prediction for Sunday, sorry?
I think we draw.
Yeah.
Because City doesn't have Foden, doesn't have Kevin De Bruyne.
De Bruyne is not playing then. Oh, okay.
Yeah, so those two are crucial to what they do. Obviously, they had Gundogan on a great level last season, but in order to break down what Nuno will be trying to impose, I think it will take more than Gundogan, Rodri, Fernandinho, and Grealish. Because let's not forget, they still don't have a striker, because Gabriel Jesus, it's a hybrid. Yes, so he's not good enough. So yeah, we can draw.
Okay, guys. Well, listen, thank you very much. Let's keep chatting during the season and, keeping up to date with what you guys are doing, what we're doing, and wish you all the very best. And let's hope that we get a good result on Sunday. And are you going to say, come on you Spurs in Spanish? Somebody from Juan Pablo, say it in Spanish, come on you Spurs.
Vamos Spurs.
What is it? Sorry, say that again.
Vamos Spurs.
Vamos Spurs. Okay, guys, gracias. See you later, guys. Take care. Thanks for everybody for watching the stream. We will be doing a stream hopefully every 1 or 2 weeks, getting good guests like JP and Matty on to talk about different things. And thank you very much. Really appreciate it. Please like the stream, and that really helps us. And hopefully we'll speak soon. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye. Bye. Bye.
Bye.